And we're live. What's going on, everybody? Hope everybody's having a good Tuesday. I'm going to get these links out. Y'all know the drill. Same old, same old. There goes my notification from YouTube. Man, it's pretty quick. So hope everybody's having a good start of their week. Should have opened these up before I started. I usually do. So Clint's going to entertain you till until I can see you, maybe. Let me get all these links done, and we can chat, see what's going on, what everybody got into this weekend. In case you couldn't tell, I'm not feeling the best. Not as bad as it was last week, though. Man, I feel bad. I felt horrible last week. Eating makes me sick. Why does it do that, man? Let's slow down. So just give me a minute, and we'll get this party started. I guess probably get more views if it wasn't so quiet at the very beginning of the podcast. I think a lot of people tuned in and they see me sitting there all quiet and doing nothing. Don't realize I'm sharing these posts. So I should probably keep talking and let them know what's going on. They tune in and see just somebody sitting there not saying anything. It's like, well, hell, this podcast is this live? Is he alive? uh, there we are. Yeah. I don't know where that one was. So bear with me while we get these shared. And this I always start out behind, then I never get caught up. Start out 5 minutes behind. I wish I could do all this before it starts, but I actually have to start the live before I get the link to share. So that's the conundrum. A few more and we'll be done. Won't take but a minute. All right, looks like we're done. Good deal. All right. I did, Clint, but I hadn't had a chance to look at them. I got them right when I logged on tonight. I hadn't looked at my phone or nothing. It said off sleep all afternoon. I was up late last night. Went to sleep like at probably noon this morning, around noon, and ate before I went to sleep. That was the biggest mistake I made. Woke up sick and got any better. What's going on, Morgan? Good to see you, brother. Good to see Morgan's got him a little podcast going on, man. Good to see it. Good to see you. Just got started this past week, so everybody check him out. Oh, damn, bro. That's why it was probably going too fast. I mean, if you can, I guess, with fire, I guess when, or traditional heating methods, when you go too fast, you'll get a scorch. But I don't know, maybe with those elements, the way they work, it's just they don't scorch unless you got particles in there, right? 11,000 watts on a 20-gallon, that's a lot. 25500s, that's cooking, bro. But I'd say it came off all at the same time because of, if once you get above a certain temperature, you don't get that gradual rise. And if you start off real hot, like that instant heat, I'm guessing this is just off my head, based on, past experience and science. It's just, I guess, with that instant heat and it heats up so quickly, that you don't have that gradual rise where you get some of that early stuff coming off early and more separation, I guess you could say. And I'd say you got to such a high boiling point so quickly that a lot of that came off at the same time. I'd say he's probably in the 200s, 205, to 207 pretty early and quick, and probably forced your tails off along with it. But it's a stripping run, so it's not. I mean, that's basically what you want in a stripping run. Really, it's you're just getting everything off there, getting you know, just getting the alcohol out of it. So I guess that's pretty much what you should expect in a good stripping run. I mean, you got it all off there, and how far down did you run it? You got it all off in about an hour. So I mean, I guess that's a pretty successful stripping. And actually, I think if you think about it, it's probably best to do it that way. That way you don't lose a lot of your flavor because you're getting a lot of that water. I'd say the proof was what was the proof? Probably a little lower than usual too, I'm guessing. What's going on, Brandon? Good to see you, brother. What's up, O'Sheen? Good to see you, man. That's Cave Daddy. What's up, brother? Awesome, man. I love me some corn and wheat. Yes, sir. I like that wheaty whiskey. Yep, O'Sheen in the hizzle. What's happening, JJ? What song? Um, Probably a country song I ain't heard yet. Yeah, that's what I figured that you got a lot of water. What happened was you got to the boiling point of water pretty quickly, and usually we gradually well, that's great. That's what you want in a stripping run, really. That you didn't lose any of your flavor, and uh, and you got it all stripped off, which would probably be better than running a low and slow stripping run, and getting that separation. But either way, I would say it was successful because it's so quick. You know, that's good to hear, Tyler Ray. What's going on, man? That's good. Glad you're here. Three possums in the cove. Yeah. What's going on, Patty? Yeah, that sounds perfect, brother. Sounds perfect. Really, coming off at 130 with your hearts and tails ending at 90. That's that's about what you want, brother. That's perfect. Probably got a lot of flavor, coming off at 130 instead of 150 or 60. So yeah, that'll be good, man. That'll be damn good. What's the best substitute for liquid enzymes or barley for a conversion in a pinch? We were talking about that the other day. Somebody asked that. It's really tough. There are some natural enzymes out there. I mean, I've heard some tribal people using saliva and a lot of crazy stuff, but really, it's best just to take your time and just get them before you do it. Don't start cooking it until you get them in. I mean, would be my recommendation. I mean, the sweet potato skins have some in it, but it's going to be real tough. I'll be honest with you, Calvin. It's going to be really tough to do without it. Especially if you're not going to use a malt or liquid. I mean, they have the powder stuff too, but I mean, what you order, you'll have to order, right? So I just say, hold off on the run until you can get it, and just don't rush things. Because I tell you that one of the most important things in distilling and winemaking, beer making, any of it, is having patience, is just being real patient. And I guess that's part of it. If you run out of something, you just got to hold off, right? I wish there was a substitute that's awesome. It's just there are, but dosing, without having foreknowledge and getting the right dosage, like on sweet potato skins, knowing how much to use, it would be so difficult. And there's other amylase, there's a lot of natural amylases and a lot of different fruits and vegetables and stuff, but usually it's only enough to convert themselves. And again, knowing how much is needed and having enough to take care of itself, and the corn, it'd be really tough, Calvin. It really, I can I, I can pull up some alternatives here. um see, fruits, vegetables. Now the alpha would be the most important thing, because the beta, I mean, even after you get your ferment started, you can add your beta and to finish it off dry, but getting it debranched, initially, while your corn, you got to gelatinize it and then debranch it at 155 or 185. Your temperature is pretty important. Um, but pineapple, it's got some bromelain and some enzymes in it. I remember Phil Billy did an experiment with that. Uh, let's see, papaya, a lot of papain, see, mangoes, bananas. I was thinking of bananas a minute ago, kiwi, avocado. A lot of these things have your enzymes in it. Um, Bean sprouts, sprouted grains. Of course, that's the malt. Um, but really, there's it's just best to wait and hold off. Just be best. I mean, looking at the list, I mean, it's all a bunch of fruit, and it'd be hard to put in there. It would, dosing, and knowing how much it'd be expensive, right? Using that kind of fruit and stuff. But I wouldn't try to dump a bunch of pineapple in on it, with the hopes of it converting, because it's just, it will some, the bromelain will do some, but it's not gonna do it like an alpha. So my recommendation would just be order it, on Amazon, and you know, you'll get it within a few days, right? And you'll be good to go. But I would just, without that, I wouldn't push it. If you already have it started, you can just do some corn and sugar and do it the old school way, just old thin mash, and it'll be hot if you want to push it and rush it. If not, I'd say I'd be patient and just wait for the enzymes to come in and get you some high temp and some liquid glucose, and go that route for sure. Good to see you, Stephen. I'm glad you're here, brother. If you got any questions, jump in there. If you're looking at getting into the hobby and looking for angle and where to start, let us know, man. We'll help you get started, and let you know what you need based on what you want to distill, and what kind of wine or whatever, brandies or whiskeys or vodkas, whatever you want to distill. Let us know. Yeah, I don't do the TikTok, and I know it. A lot of people get on there and get viral and get a lot of followers and all that stuff, but never been interested. I know that they're probably most strict on rules. So I mean, I don't even know if I can talk on there without getting kicked off. some of the things we talk about, but wasn't good. Yeah, it's bananas. I don't mind a banana. I do good with bananas and sweet potatoes, but I never tried them together. Uh, Sweet potatoes do good, but I don't know about the combo. I've been an interesting combo. But yeah, I like doing the sweet potato with regular potatoes and just kind of, but you got to cook them off and you got to use your amylase on them just like you would a corn or any other thing. A lot of people don't realize that they think you only use the high temp alpha and the glucose on like corn, or something like that. But, any starchy vegetable, anything with starch in it that you're going to use the alpha and the glucose to help convert it, break it down and convert it, right? So even potatoes, I've seen people running potatoes without the enzymes and adding sugar, and it's like, no, just start with your potatoes, your sweet potatoes, and mash them up, get those skins in there because that's beneficial for sure. And yeah, no problem, Calvin. Yeah, I'll just be patient, brother. But yeah, just get those skins in there and cook it down and gelatinize it. And we've seen the scale. I'll put it up here. It's definitely something that you want to keep on hand. If you haven't already, join the DIY shining stuff or the militia and pull these files off there. So you'll have the benefit. And I keep them on my phone because I can't remember all these temperatures, but they really pretty much have it on the same area. But you'll see here, potato, has such a large range, right? From 160, all the way down to 135. So 132.5. So you can, get your potatoes cooked at 160. I take them on up, except for the skins. If you're going to depend on some of the skins, which I don't anymore because we got the liquid and liquid high temp and the glucose. Such a valuable tool, man. It's you almost can't do without it anymore. I don't know how we ever did without it to begin with. I guess we use more sugar, right? It helps to eliminate your need for sugar, so you can offset the sugar cost with your amylase cost, right? And it doesn't take much. So the $20 or whatever you spend on the 2-pack or whatever. That's what I used to get off of my buddy Prohibition. I get me a 2-pack, the high temp alpha and the glucose both at the same time, and he always cut me a pretty good deal on them, and use those, man. It's a game changer. It truly is a game changer. But yeah, this chart, but yeah, cook them up, and you're gonna have to get them, up to 185 if you're gonna use that high temp, and because that's the temperature that it wants to work at, right? That's its operating temperature. I guess you could do probably 170 to 85 in that range, and it still get good activation and work real well. But yeah, the banana mash, though, you got to watch them. Yeah, Calvin, I'd just order that off Amazon and just wait a few days and then cook your corn up and do all you. But if you've already started, I just go ahead and you're not going to be able to gelatinize your corn. You could always heat it back up. You're gonna have to add more yeast, but you could always just heat it back up and kill your yeast, and that'll be just some nutrients right after you do that. And add it if you've already cooked it and got it started. If it's just corn, and you've already cooked it, but you just have to heat it up. If you've already gelatinized it and brought it down, I guess you could take it back up to 170 or whatever, and add 185 in that range, and add your high temp. You wouldn't have to gelatinize it, but yeah, I would. I'd definitely wait. Patience, is that's one thing I love about it is it takes time, and you can be a procrastinator. Making wines and doing all this. You say, I'll fool with it tomorrow, and it'll be all right. Yeah, you can let that stuff sit a day or two. It'll be all right. I'll get around to it next week or tomorrow, and you can. It won't hurt anything. Just be once it's covered up and fermenting. Might get a little dry, but That's not the end of the world, you know. Because yeah, that's one of the beauties. You can put things off. Yeah, good deal, good deal. Lauren, I missed something. I'm scrolling back. I don't see Lauren. I missed something. Oh, saw some blocks of the seasoned white oak with the cross cut, fixing to split the sapwood. Awesome. Sounds good. You know, I saw some today. No, it was yesterday. That there's this company bringing in some 100-year-old oak from China. Maybe it's Japan or China one. 100-year-old oak and sawing it up, and they're making barrels out of it. That's pretty interesting. 100-year-old oak. Absolutely, brother. That I mean, it's a game changer, man. It really is. It's because I used to use the powder too, and I've used malts and I've used the powder. And malted corn takes for freaking ever, and the powder didn't really always get the best conversion, right? And I've heard people say, you never don't want to use, more than 2.5 pounds. And when you do use 3 pounds of corn, it does get awful thick and stingy. But back in the days when I was using the powdered amylase, that's what I always recommended was 3 pounds because with the powdered amylase you didn't get that good of conversion, and if you wanted to get a decent yield, you'd about have to do 3 gallons with that powder, and especially if you had some adjunct grains going in with it. But now with the liquid high temp, man, you can do 2.5, and I wouldn't you 2.25 and get a perfect conversion and get really good numbers, and it's not so thick and stubborn, right? So it's a game changer for sure. The liquid amylase and high temp liquid for sure. I mean, I hated the powder; it just was inconsistent, very finicky. You'd have to keep it right at 155, and it was really tough, and trying to keep that temperature for a long time, and it was tough. And then of course, cooking corn, malted corn at 155 for 10 hours, that was crazy too. All right. So, did you cook your corn first? Gelatinize your corn first, and then let the temperature reduce down, and add your wheat at about 145, 55. I think it's the temp for wheat. Let's see what it has on here. Malted wheat. And I'd say the malted wheat was going to be about the same. Hell, I'm going to put my damn glasses on, man. I'll tell you what, I'm going to have to get me some new contact lenses. Can't see the chart. I see wheat goes to about 150. I knew it was a little bit cooler than what your malted regular is, but with the malted wheat, I'd say you'd be fine at 150, 155 range. But yeah, you got gelatinize. Did you gelatinize your corn first at 185, 95 for 90 minutes to 2 hours, and then let it cool? Stir, let it cool, and then add your malted wheat. Now, if you malted it yourself, you're not going to get as good a success rate as if you get it from like a malting house, right? When when we do it ourselves, it's considered a partial malt because a lot of times we don't get that perfect malt, right? We don't. Some are not malted, some are over malted, most are in between, and got a good average. But like a malt house, everything's just very consistent. Um, So, but definitely got to, use that high temp alpha and gluco even with the malted grains, and it will make you so much more successful in those conversions, and it'll definitely help, brother, for sure. Tell us what your process was, O'Shea. Yeah, yeah, right. You gotta cook it and get the timing. Okay. Yeah, that's one thing for sure. That the amylase definitely helps with consistency and getting good numbers. But just having patience and getting that corn gelatinized properly. You can still use that wheat, malted wheat for the flavor. Just don't depend on it, right? And still have it there for the flavor, and it will help. You'll still get some benefit from it. So I mean, you're not all lost. You can malt that wheat. Just don't depend on it for conversion, right? Use your high temp and your gluco along with that wheat, and you'll be sure to get a good, solid conversion, and you'll benefit from the malted wheat flavor that you like. So I wouldn't quit malting it. I would just quit depending on it to do 100% of the job like it should. And good deal. Got your beverage, 3 gallon. All right. Took too much alcohol out of it. It's okay, Stephen. Running down into the tails is okay. Actually kind of beneficial. It is considered like a strip and run. And what you want to do is take whatever you got off there and add some water to it and proof it down to below 80 proof or 40%, and run it again. That's unless you scorch it, you don't ruin anything. You can always recover the alcohol just by saving it and running it again. That's another beauty of this. So unless you ruin it, and even if it doesn't taste good, we can still fix that. But just scorching, scorching is one thing that really it's hard to recover from. Aside from that, it's going to be pretty easy. I will say with your Viva 3, your gaskets, the small gaskets that fit on the lids, not the big main gasket, but the smaller gaskets on the lids that the fittings go into. Be real careful about over tightening those because they'll split on you pretty easily. Also, the slobber box, aka thumper, that come with them, I wouldn't use it right off the bat. I would save that and just put it aside for now. And your condenser, that's going to be one of your primary concerns. Generally, condensers really tough to keep at a constant temperature. It's really undersized, very small. Um, so, making a little bit larger copper coil and getting it, kind of away from the pot instead of sitting on top of it where it's hot. If you can, get you some copper, I would try to increase the size of that. I guess it's probably a 3/8 inch line coming out of that. You'd go to half or something coming off that, or 5/8, and probably get a little better consistency. But yeah, it's a good little pot to start on. But once you get going and you understand the principles and everything going on, you're going to want a bigger pot because you're not going to get a lot of volume off of it. And it's, you what I tell everybody is you go through the same amount of work um, to cook for a 3 gallon pot as you would a 10 gallon pot, right? It just takes a little bit more corn. So you're taking maybe a few minutes more to grind the corn, taking, a few minutes more to add the corn, and you're taking a few minutes more to, boil a little bit more water off. But, all your time involved is getting all these things together, right? And actually doing it. So, increasing it, you don't have to mash in for just a 3 gallon still. You can mash in as if you had a 50 gallon, right? And just take some out, fill it up, fill up 3 gallon still and run it. Take some more out, fill up, because out of that same fermentation, there's nothing that says you have to run it all at once, right? Or only, ferment 5 gallons. So try to ferment more and have it, and it'll keep. Again, if you keep it covered, and especially if you have an airlock, but if you keep it covered up, not encapsulated. Now you don't want to tighten lids down or anything like that, because it's going to build pressure, right? Because it's got off gassing, so you got to allow for that, right? With either allowing a vent hole, or you know a lot of things that you can use to, just putting a towel over it, just anything to keep, critters out of it, flies from getting in there, and other problem issues. And, but you can use an airlock, right? And those work pretty well too, but not as critical for, like, just grain wet mashes, and sugar mashes and washes and things like that. But for your wines and brandies, you definitely want to do that. But yeah, getting a little bit bigger condenser would definitely help out a lot, and getting it away from the pot. But it's a great little starter. But it won't take long, man. You'll be like, yeah, once you get used to it and getting it down, and learning more about it. And it's hard to make cuts on a smaller still too. So you'll use this probably 5 times, and you'll be like, man, I got to get a bigger pot. Either you love the hobby and say, yep, this is something I enjoy doing, I like it, uh, but I need to get a little bit more volume, right? So you put in all this work, and out of a 3 gallon, you might get, a quart of decent liquor, and it's like, man, it's a lot of work, for that. And then you start thinking, man, if I had, triple this, if I had like a 10 gallon, I could be pulling off, 3 or 4 quarts, right? Almost a gallon. So, um, yeah, but it's a great start, and it's, it'll get your feet wet, and if you don't drink a lot or have a lot of thirsty friends, it probably be all right. But yeah, you'll notice you get a lot more thirsty friends when you got a still, and they start tasting that liquor, man. They'll be wanting to get them some. But that's awesome, man, that you got started, and we'll help you along the way, bro. So any questions that you have, or any issues, let us know. But be real careful about over tightening those gaskets, because they will split on you in a heartbeat. Yeah, it's definitely the way to go, man. You definitely want to get rid of that sugar, and hell yeah, man. I love it too, Hillbilly. I love it. It's been a game changer for us grain distillers. It's a godsend, man. I mean, it's so awesome not to have to cook that corn forever, or depend on that barley malt and have to pay for that expensive malt. We can just make corn liquor cheap as hell, and convert it without having to buy that $2 a pound, barley malt, or spend the time to malt our wheat and depend on it. Because it's tough. I malt wheat too. It's tough, but I do like the flavor of it. Was your? Oh, I was wondering. I was scrolling back. Who was Lauren? I don't remember somebody. I missed somebody. Yeah, I know, man. It'd be pretty interesting. There's a new barrel company. I don't know if it's a new barrel company, or a new liquor that's these people that are ordering, that making liquor, ordering these barrels for. I can't remember if it's a. I guess it was, a liquor commercial, but they're, I guess, laser etching the Japanese. It maybe was Japanese writing on the barrel head. Just finished around, got the trub left over. It's cornbread. Should I attempt a sour mash? Absolutely. Nope, you won't need any yeast unless. Now, if you save your back set, did you save the back set from your run? Save the back set from your run, but run it all the way out. Run your tails out, and run it down to when you get to about 10, 20. If you're using gas, 20. Uh, proof, and if you're using electric, you can run it all the way down to 10. But if gas is getting expensive, you can stop at 30. Just add some water to it and some sugar, and throw it right back in on that cornbread, and you can do a sour mash. Uh, Now the old traditional sour mash method is to use fresh grains every time. Just use back set with it to give that sourness, and bring in your yeast from from your previous run, and dump on there from your trub, and separate your old grain from the yeast, sieve it out. But I guess the modern Uncle Jesse's sour mash method, JSSM, is to use your back set along with what you had before, right? And I'd assume that's what you're talking about, since you're using the leftovers, which is perfectly fine. Um, but yeah, I'd take a little bit of that cornbread out, some of it, and add some fresh corn, cracked corn to it each time. Don't have to convert it, just for that corn flavor, because basically from this point on out, it's just a corn flavor. It's a thin mash. It's thin sour mash. I don't know. Basically, that's what it is. It's just a thin mash, but it's a sour mash because you're using grains that from before, and not just fresh with some sugar, right? So yeah, that'll work great. You can perpetuate that, and just again take 10%, whatever grain or cornbread you got in there. Take 10% out, add 10% back. Throw some, back set in there, but let it cool, right? You don't want high temperature back set in there, and you don't want it to have a lot of alcohol content, because that'll kill your yeast off. And that's one of the best things about it, perpetuating it, is you don't have to keep adding the yeast to it, right? So add that cool back set. And if it's got some alcohol in it, as you mix your sugar in with that warm back set while it's still warm, dissolve your sugar in there. Don't use it all, so you'll probably pour half your back set off, and then use the other half. Add some sugar. If it's still got a little bit of alcohol in there, you can add a little bit of water to it. That 10% of grain, dump that in after it's cooled, and give her a good stir and let her go. And just do that every time, and you'll get fairly consistent results. Um, but again, it's not a true conversion, but it's consistent. You'll develop a consistency, and it's decent, but it's sugar. Using sugar. Now, another method would be to cook your grains and do all that every time, and do it as a traditional sour mash. Cook your grains, convert them, and you can save some of that trub out of the bottom again, and add that to it to help provide a nutrient and the yeast. But yeah, go ahead, but not before you cook it. So go ahead and cook it, gelatinize it. Add your alpha amylase, high temp, let her cool. Add your glucose at 100, 45, 110, depending on what your package calls for. There's different kinds. And then add that trub from the last run with some back set into that. Adjust your pH, get your gravity, and be ready to go. And that's a traditional sour mash. You will cook the corn every time and convert it. So that's the difference. In the simple sour mash is more of a thin mash type sour mash, and the traditional method would be to cook your grains every time, and just carry forward a little bit of that trub for the yeast and nutrients that it has. And you can sieve off the corn, the thicker part, just run it through a sieve. Most of your yeast will be in the milk, right? It's not that thick, so it'll go through the sieve. Whereas if you got a coarse grain, of cracked corn, it'll catch most of that, and then a little bit slips through. It's not going to be a big issue, right? But yeah, that's the old the old method, traditional method. Right. And well, if you're using the powder like I was, you know, the starting gravity wasn't high because I wasn't getting all that great a conversion using that powder. It wasn't it didn't convert like the liquid does. It is hard to get consistency. What's going on, Scott? I was wondering about you, brother. Tardy, righty, man. ticket to Clint. He's tardy. Good to see you, my man. All right, just finishing the run. Got the chub left over cornbread. Should I attempt a sour mash and should I put some fresh yeast in with it? Oh, okay. Let the original mash go. Now, temperature will be your determinant. You know, somebody was asking me that right before the show. I answered the little message they sent me, and they were doing a wash, and it was taking a little bit longer. And it's temperature this time of year. You know, temperature is really the biggest issue, and every winter, you know, everybody's like, I don't know, I did everything the same, it's taking twice as long. And they don't realize that temperature really means a lot. And that yeast and is very temperature sensitive. And necessarily is not a bad thing. Taking a little bit longer is not necessarily a bad thing at all, you know, especially, you know, with the yeast, and depending on the yeast that you're using, it may be a good thing that it's taking longer, because you know we don't want those yeast working too hard too fast, because that kind of puts them in a little bit of a stress. So, you know, that's fine. You know, patience. Like I said at the very beginning, you know, that's the biggest virtue you need in distilling is having the patience. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, you probably denatured the enzymes in your wheat, and that's what caused it. I thought something, and it's not the end of the world. We're all learning, and it's not that big a deal. You know, it's a learning process. But I figured that was the case. But yeah, do your corn first, gelatinize it out at the high temp, and then when it gets cool to about 155, that's when you want to add your wheat in. You know, and you'll notice it thin out. So as you after you gelatinize it, and like I talked about, you know, keeping that temp up past 185 for 90 minutes, add a little bit of that hot water. You know, keeping a little bit back. You know, to add and adding it. Um, yeah, that definitely will do a lot better if you wait until it cools to 155 and then add that wheat into it. Yeah, it's about that time for sure. Oh man, some of this honey shine on mics will make me feel better. Pretty good, Fred. A 1 year distilling, done a good job. Yeah, that's what this chart shows you is the gelatinization. So you'll see a little ball to the left, a little ball to the right. That's the temperature range that this they call it saccharification, and that's when you pull the starches out, you know, of the grain itself, and begin to, you know, they're at the prime temp to convert, and they're gelatinizing. And you'll notice, you know, some of them, like this barley malt, has a pretty tight range, right? Looks like 145 to 152.5 or almost 155. Pretty tight range with that. Just like this rice down here. Very tight range. Just like, you know, you'll notice the rice and that malt, they have a pretty tight range. So does your barley up there. Very tight ranges, right? That's so you have to keep it right in that range for X amount of time to get those you know, gelatinized, and to pull your starches, hydrolyzed, to get your starches out of it. Yeah, quart would be way too much. You know, you won't have that much heads on a 3 gallon. Generally 50 milliliters per gallon. So, you know, 150 milliliters for 3 gallon still. If you're putting 3 gallons in there, I don't even, not sure how they rate them. Is it holding 3 gallons or is it 3 gallons to the top of the pot? So if it is, and you're only able to run 2 gallons, so that's just 100 milliliters, you know, that you're going to pull off for the heads average, you know, and then you're going to have to go by smell a little bit. But yeah, it's quart way too much. But hey, it's a learning process, you know. And if you still have that quart, it's okay because you can pour all that all back together, add some water, proof it down like I was saying, and run it again and get that alcohol out of there, you know, and in the same, you know, it'll be fine. But if you poured it out, it's not the end of the world. We get her better next time, you know, but it's a learning process, you know, and that's why we're here to try to smooth out that process a little bit and not make it so bumpy. Because, man, I tell you, when I first started, I was pretty young and it was pretty bumpy, but we learned the hard way. Yeah, well, you know, it's not going to turn into vinegar if unless you allow the fruit flies to get to it or allow it to oxidize. You know, it's especially, you know, with your corn mashes and your grains and your washes, those tend to go pretty quickly. So they're not sitting for long periods. You know, a couple of weeks ain't going to be a big deal. Generally, vinegar, you know, turning to vinegar happens to your brandies and your wines, you know, most importantly, wines. And that's because we're storing it for months, right? And that's why. And again, time, you know, uh, couple of weeks, nothing's turns to vinegar that quickly. I wish it would, you know, for vinegar makers, it'd be so much better if it did, but it takes time. So, um, trying to think of who it is on here. Can't think of his name. Mike, I think Mike uh, makes vinegar, you know, and been asking a lot about making vinegar. To ask him, it takes a lot of patience and time to make the vinegar. But yeah, covering your barrel just helps keep critters out of it because the flies are going to be in it. You know, all kinds of insects love it. Yellow jacket's going to be all up in it. You know, a lot of animals love getting in that. But yeah, just keeping it covered to keep the critters out, and it helps keep the, you know, oxygen, allows oxygen to off gas and holds in maybe a little bit of CO2. But you know, for our washes and mashes, they're just not going to sit long enough. You know, there's a couple weeks or less, so it's just not going to have the time to turn to vinegar like our brandies and our whites will when we age and do secondary fermentations on. Yeah, it's everything is. You know, they make it all seem so easy on TV, and it's not really hard once you understand the fundamentals. It everything makes sense, you know, and I try to make it all make sense. That's my job. So I hope I'm not failing you, but yeah, get on that DIY Shine and Steel Building page, and let me pull that up here real quick, and I'll tell you the name of the file that you want to look at. And if you just follow those instructions and then, you know, deviate from them, if you want to add your grain, um, yeah, go to DIY Shine and Steel Building. Go to the files and look for simple steps for beginners mashing corn using the steep method. And upload that on October the 8th. I need to add more files. I need to spend some time this week and do that. Excuse me. Starting to feel a little bit better. My stomach, man. I think that shot helped. Good medicine. Yeah, read that file and yeah, you got to gelatinize that corn, right? And you got to break those starches out of that corn. And once you do, and it gelatinizes, you pulled all those complex carbs out of that corn and got them combined with the water, and you've hydrolyzed it. Now you add that amylase, and it'll thin it out and complete the hydrolyzing process, and it'll thin out for you. And once you get down to 155, then you can add that malted wheat or malted barley, and let it stir, and you'll notice it start getting even thinner because there's alpha enzymes in there, and there's also beta glucanase in there, and it'll start help thin it out. And then you get it down to 145 or 110 or so, whichever your glucose calls for on the package, because there's different kinds. So always follow the instructions on the package, even if, I say, 185 for this. If you get a high temp says different, which I doubt, go by what the package says, because they know what temperatures their enzymes are going to denature. So use the temperatures on the label, and especially for your glucose, and it'll work out pretty well for you. Follow that instruction, just get it down. Yeah, the acetobacters are actually brought by the fruit flies. The fruit flies get on fruit, and they get this acetobacter bacteria is everywhere. It's kind of like yeast in the air. It's just everywhere, and it's on all fruit. It's part of the decomposition process, decomposing process. And so all these fruit flies get all over it. They're all over that fruit, and they just wander, and if they wander into your brandy or mash, that acetobacter gets off their body. And once it gets off their body in the presence of some alcohol, that acetobacter starts to feed, because that's part of the process. And fruit breaks down those acetobacters like the alcohol that's coming off that breaking down fruit, right? The natural fermentation process from the wild yeast on there is causing it to ferment, and those acetobacters thrive on that. And you can actually grow mother of vinegar with that process. Yeah, and it gets deep. I try to generalize it and keep it simple, but if you want to get down deep into the science of it, and look at the molecular, study it on the molecular level and the changes that happen in the compounds, it's actually a very complex process. It's very amazing how it works. So yeah, it can, you know you can go as deep down that rabbit hole as you want to, and it gets amazing. How the science of it works. Yeah, well, you're gonna have to get her done. That's a good deal, I think. Yeah, tomorrow I think is the final day for that Bever. Uh, the deal on that Bever, like 208, 205, 208, something like that, for that 18.5 gallon Bever football. That's a pretty good deal, because they've gone up a little bit in price. I've noticed on eBay and stuff. They've gone up a little bit. It used to be about 230, 40. I think I've seen some 250, 75. I actually thought I wanted 300, but that's silly. Yeah, 208. That's a pretty good deal. Pretty good deal. Of course, they'll have another deal Memorial Day and Independence Day, and so just save up. And you might find one, actually. You can find one used. Somebody gets the hobby and doesn't have Clint and Joe, to help them out. They get frustrated, and it's like, no, this ain't working, man. It's just too much bullshit. Taste horrible. I hate it. This damn worst idea I've ever had. I can't believe it. Now they make it seem so easy on TV, right? And so a lot of people get frustrated, and they sell them. So look at Marketplace and eBay too, and you might be able to pick one up even cheaper, brother. No, it is, and it's not bad. Actually, it's as good as any other, heirloom corns or anything else. It's just unique, right? So each corn is going to have their own unique flavor. Better is in the eye of the beholder, or the drinker, or the taster, whatever. Some people prefer just regular old yellow dent to anything, and some of your best bourbons in the world and whiskeys in the world are made with yellow dent corn. In fact, I don't know of any of the best liquors that win the competitions and stuff are made with heirloom grains. I mean, I'm sure somebody's gonna correct me. So, oh well, there was this whistle pig that made this or whatever, But you know, all your top shelf bourbons and whiskeys made with cheap old yellow dent corn, man, converted. And a lot of these big distilleries, they use that same high temp. They use gallons at a time, or we just use little, you know, teaspoons at a time, right? They're dumping big gallons into these big 1,000-gallon, fermenters and stuff. So they do the same process. It's just scaled up. Now the thumper will work and it helps, and you can use it to infuse, especially if you want to throw your little cream corn in there. Just saying, for your corn liquor, that sure helps. Awesome. Yeah, I've been looking to get me a flat top. I've been thinking, you know, I might just get one. I've got a nice gas grill, and I've got actually two different grills. I got a nice gas grill, and I got one that does like infrared. It's like it uses gas, but it's a different burner. It's a lot finer and hotter, right? It's just a lot of burners in there, and they're real fine, small flames, but it's spread out over the whole thing, and it gets real, real hot. And it's great for searing steaks and doing those. Um, I was thinking, getting why can't you just get a good cast iron top, put on the regular gas grill, and make a griddle out of that, and just take off the grate, put on the flat top, right? Instead of having to get a Blackstone. Yeah, I've been looking at that too. Yeah, yeah. Or you can put a little cream corn in there too. Just saying. But yeah, you can put your tails in there and help increase your production too. So that's one thing you can do with that 3-gallon still to help increase your production. And is if you want to use that thumper, to put the tails that I was talking about, running those tails out. Put those tails in there, and it'll get that ethanol out of those tails. Now you don't want to load too much in your thumper because those aren't the most efficient setups, and you don't want it to overfill, and it's kind of undersized, so I wouldn't use much. Uh, but yeah, just a little bit in there, and that'll help get you a little bit more alcohol out of those tails. Yeah, it does. It does help the pH for sure. And I'll tell you something else you could do. If you wanted to, there's nothing that says you can't add a little back set to the water that you're boiling to convert the corn with, right? To lower the pH, because we know that you want to, the water that you boil to cook your corn, just to steep it in or cook it. You want that pH to be around 5.3 to start with, right? So a lot of people make the mistake and adding the citric acid, to it after all said and done. And when they're doing the gravity, they just go ahead and add that right about the same time they add the yeast. So sometimes it's better to go ahead, and it's always better to go ahead and add that citric acid or back set from the very get go, and get that proof down, or get that pH down to 5.3, and then start steeping your corn in that, and it helps in the conversion a lot, right? That acid helps it to break it out a lot better, for sure, 100%. I can't believe you just said that, man. I didn't even. Absolutely, you can use that to help lower your pH. Awesome. See, great minds think alike. Yeah, I just scrolled right into that. Good thoughts. I like it. Yeah, you can always use frying pan, man. I have to agree with Clint on that one now. Definitely, though, that saves you some money on citric acid too, using that back set. Definitely, and add some flavor to it, from the get go, right? And add a little bit of sour and flavor. So I may have to start doing that. Awesome, awesome. Well, that wine, as long as you keep it under an airlock, it'll wait till you get that still. I was told to dump out a quart of the 3 gallons and recently found it. Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, it's way too much for now. I'm not sure how those are rated. Is it 3 gallons to the top, or is it 3 gallons and you still got enough headspace to do it? So you run a full three on it, or are you running two to give you that? Because you definitely got to leave you some space so you don't foam up and puke over, right? So it might just be a couple of gallons, in which case you're just keeping 100 milliliters. Let me see what that converts to. Let me Google that. 100 milliliters. And ounces 3.3, so 4 ounces would be about right. Yeah, it'd be on the safe side. Yeah, be good. 3.3 ounces of 100 milliliters. So yeah, if you're doing 2 gallons, that would be fine. If you're doing 3 gallons, that might be the why it's four. Let me see. That'd be 150 milliliters, and that would probably be a 4.5.0. So yeah, sounds about right. Yeah, making cuts on that. That first 100 millimeter, 150 milliliters. That's just a safety thing, just to make sure you don't get, four shots. But you still may have some heads coming off, depending on what you're doing. Like if you're brandy, you may still have some heads coming off. If it's a sugar wash, maybe not. Grain, possible. Um, so you want to smell and feel it and get it in your hands, and let a few drips get in your hands and rub your hands together, smell it, and smell for that acetone, that fingernail polish remover. Now, when you say fingernail polish remover, it's kind of tough, because if you smell just fingernail polish remover, that's often perfumed. But if you go to the hardware store and get acetone, that they use it in refinishing and stuff, furniture, you'll smell a difference. A lot of times they use it paint thinning and other things, but you'll smell it, and it's a distinctive odor. And once you learn to smell acetone, it's what it smells like. So and then wash your hands real good, because once you get that acetone on your hands, that next time you test it, you still have some on there, and it's still going to smell like acetone, right? Um, so but it's something that you're going to have to develop a touch for over time, and that's probably the hardest thing to teach, and just experience is going to have to be your teacher on making cuts and smelling it and feeling it, and feeling how clean to oily, how kind of squeaky clean, how your fingers kind of do that number. You hear that? And then once it gets oily, it doesn't do that anymore when you rub it. It's slick. So developing a touch, a smell, and even sometimes you can see, when you get into tails, you can see that beading of the oils when it hits, when those drips hit that surface, right? So even sight, what's going on, Jive Beat? Peace and love, brother. That's a good question. I would say you could probably do a malt extract. That's basically what you're creating is a malt extract. Uh, but it's best just to use the liquid. You're trying to reinvent the wheel, and it's just use that high temp liquid. It's pretty cheap. Um, Not initially, it's expensive to a point, but per use it's very, very cheap. For each fermentation that you do and conversion you do is very, very cheap. Because you're only using just little tiny amounts, right? You'll be shocked at how little. You'll be like, is that enough? And you'll want to add more because it just doesn't seem like enough because it's so little. But I would just depend on those and just add those grains in at the right temp, and that eliminate any problem that you have, and you won't have to fool with all that and try. I mean, it's a great experiment if you want to try to experiment with it and see how well that works, and by all means, but they have some, malt extracts that you can use if you want to, you know, try to use those. They've got some dry DME and LME that's liquid and dry malt extracts, and you can use those. Uh, but I would just stick with the liquid high temp and liquid gluco, and continue to malt your wheat like you are for flavor, and depend on it less for your diastatic. Yeah, never throw it away. Even if your cuts are making bad cuts, just get you a big old gallon or two glass container or stainless steel container. And anytime you mess anything up, just dump it in there. And then you keep, oh, it's got heads, you dump it in there. Oh, I think I'm going to dump it in there. And call it a faints, and then you can proof that down and distill it and get all the good alcohol off of it and rerun it. Because, like I say, unless you scorch it, you can save it and rerun it. Even in your back set, you can save that and rerun it, and get the rest of it out of there. It's in there. It's, unless it evaporates, it's going nowhere. So you can always rerun it and recover it. So uh, yeah, there's all kinds of critters get in there, man. They love it. No, he's not about, but we can answer your question, brother. Thumper for a 2-pot bever. Well, he can definitely hook you up. I would say if you're still using the original condenser, that would be the first modification I made, Fox, for sure. If you've already modified your condenser and you want to add the thumper, yeah, it's a great addition. But if you haven't, I would definitely look into upgrading that condenser first, and then worrying about the thumper next, because thumpers are great tools, but it's kind of an intermediate tool, and it's not something that you want to use every time. I mean, a lot of times people think, well, it came with the steel, I need to use it every time, and it's not that way. It's just for special things that you want to do. You might want to increase your proof for. Then you'll want to run that thumper to increase proof, or if you want to add some flavor, right, and add that cream corn or whatever, and get some more flavor out of it, you can use it for that as well. But you're not going to use it for every fermentation. But that having that good condenser. So if you haven't upgraded that first, that'd be the first thing I talk to Phil Billy about. And but yeah, just get up with him and Ian on their website, and or hook them, chat them up in the militia page, or send them messages, and ask them. But yeah, I definitely, if you haven't worked on that condenser, I'd do that first for sure. Yeah, and I'm behind, and I'm way behind as usual. So yeah, if we don't get your question and we skip over it, it's not intentional. I'm trying to I try to scan through these and keep up and as best I can, and it's impossible to. And you know, me and Clint double up and try to get everything answered in twice, right? So bear with us and just realize if you say hey and I don't respond to you within a few minutes, I ain't being snobby or uppity. I just ain't seen it yet. So I scroll through, and as you see me highlight, you know, this is from 8:55. I'm 20 minutes behind. Touche, Clint. Man, the bridge will work for a firm meter or a cooling reservoir. Kidding Clint about his. Okay, attempted to make an apple wheat beer. Well, that's awesome. I mean, that vinegar's hard to make that quickly, so that's good. You know, right? And it was, you know, the fruit flies, especially like apple. You know, it's it if you didn't cook the apple to a certain temperature, it may already had the Cetobacters in it. You know, just you know, it's kind of a natural thing. That's why I like heating everything up to about 160 plus to kill any all that off, right? And that way, from that point on, you know, some people use the Camden tablets to kill everything off if you want to. Potassium metabisulfate to kill everything off. But you know, nothing like hitting it with 160 plus to kind of kill all that wild yeast and Cetobacters and all that stuff off. So you know you're starting with a pretty not a bacteria free, but you've eliminated most of the troublesome stuff. There can be some other things in there that may come to haunt you a little bit later, but you know, you just have to roll with those punches as they come, you know. Yeah, you definitely want to clean it out. Definitely hot water is probably one of the best things. Bleach can be tough. Make sure you air it out real well and wash it again after you do use if you do use the bleach, because sometimes that gets a little bit oily and hard to get off and clean. But nothing like good old hot water to get rid of the Cetobacters. That 160, 70-degree water or boiling water, if you want to get it that hot, will definitely kill it off. And you know, if you got wood spoons you stir with, anything that it touched, you definitely want to clean and expose to that high heat water. Yeah, you had the drawing today. Yeah. So if you see my head bounce, don't worry, I'm not stroking. I just caught myself doing it. I've got hyperactive leg syndrome, so I'll sit here and bounce my damn leg, and that might make my head. But I'm all right. Let's just be known I'm sitting here hitting my bass drum. Yeah, it'll be on sale. Just be patient. There you go again. Did he say shots? That's good. I need one. Ain't nothing cure those ailments like a little shot, huh? Yeah, man. Yeah, that's gonna be a tough find, but hey, I've seen some people come up with some miraculous deals. Now I have. If you keep your eye to the Facebook Marketplace and eBay and other stuff, man, I've seen some people getting copper steels and old stainless milk cans, 20, 30 gallon old stainless vessels that are easily converted. You take it to a welder and have something made out of it in a heartbeat. I've seen some pretty miraculous deals. And so I've seen a lot of people show off their finds mostly, they're like, look what I found, Santa. And it's like, man, I wish I'd have seen that. You wouldn't have got it. It's I've got a pretty good size one. I don't know how many square inches it is, but the infrared one's kind of small. It's not real big. It's maybe 2.5 by 2 by 2.5 maybe. It's kind of small. It's charm glow, or charbroil maybe charm glow. But the other one is pretty good size. It's got two separate grates in it, and it's a pretty good size one. It's I got it at Home Depot a few years back. It's a pretty nice one. I might have to replace the burners in it, but it would have the stainless top, and it might be a charbroil too. But I'd like to get the griddle plates for it. What's going on, Carp? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, that's what I was looking at, and but at the same time, 50 more bucks, you can find one of those Blackstones on a good sale, on a Black Friday or something sale. And but yeah, it's that would probably be about the right size too. But yeah, I was looking at inserts. They got them, and it'd be a lot cheaper than having the Blackstone and having yet another big, another griddle or something sitting next to the deck. I've got a line of them already there. Got the smoker, I got the grill, and then I got the infrared. So yeah, I agree. Yeah, I wouldn't turn a good wine unless I just intended it to be, you know, like an apple rye or something. Tastes good as a rye, wine, but it's still gonna get run. Yeah, man, that's what we're here for, brother. Yeah, and bring your questions. I mean, don't worry about asking. Say, oh, I hate, I'm just wondering about this, but I don't want to look like an idiot or anything. We weren't born with this knowledge. We all have to learn somehow in some way. You just found the best way, right? So, come with your questions and ask every question that you got, because none are. We've all asked them. Everybody sitting here with us, if they have the knowledge, they've asked the question. Now, they may have resolved it different ways. Some may have learned the hard way from just trial and error. Some may Google it and take their chances on who's answering. And I think that's why a lot of people like coming here, because they know, me and Clint with, hell, almost 80, 90 years of experience between the two of us. You got a lot of experience behind it, a little bit of science knowledge backing it. So it's a good place to get your questions answered, and that's why we set this up the way we did. It's tough. Everybody can say, "Oh, just go watch the videos. Just watch George videos, and he'll answer your questions." And he will. If you want to sit through 8 to 10 videos to get your questions asked and spend a week, just looking for that answer, you'll learn a lot in the meantime. George's great, and Philbilly's great, and all these. But if you have a specific question, sometimes, bring it here and you can get it answered immediately or within 30 minutes, you know. Or Clint can answer immediately and I'll follow up with a long winded diatribe. But yeah, that's why we're here. I saw the need for it in the community, and a lot of people asking, a lot of groups, and that's one of the reasons we created the militia, is to get away from all the badgering and belittling, people coming in asking a question, and what really gets me is the people that were belittling and pointing and, oh, it's a stupid question, and just trying to act big, and they had the same damn questions when they first started, right? So it's okay for them to ask that question, but for you to do it, oh, you're a newbie and all this, we all start somehow. So anybody that does that in the militia or in DIY shining stuff will be removed. So if you join those groups and somebody asks questions and you get tired of answering the same question over and over again, don't get frustrated and say something mean spirited, because we will remove you for that. But if it pisses you off, whatever, just scroll on by. That's what people have so much trouble doing these days, just scrolling on by. But yeah, that's why we're here to answer questions, regardless of how simple the question may be. It may not seem simple. When you first start, it's not a simple question. It's complex because you haven't, you know, been taught the fundamentals. And once you learn the fundamentals, then a lot of these things will come more naturally and a lot easier to you. So that's what we're here to teach you, the fundamentals, and we can take it on up as complex as you want to get with your questions. But glad you're here with us, man. We'll help you all the way through your journey. We're here on Tuesdays Eastern, 8 Eastern, and on Saturdays 8 Eastern. And as long as I'm feeling good, we'll be here, and we'll answer all the questions that you got. We'll help you along the way, and try to help make your decisions for you, with you, and what, upgrades if you decide to upgrade, and learning it. But learning on three is a good, inexpensive, easy way to get your feet wet. Not quite sure, to pull the trigger, and those copper steels can be, thousands of dollars. So that's why these bevers are so good and inexpensive. And that's like we're talking about that football. I can't stress enough at $208 what a good deal it is. And I mean, you'd think I work for Bever, but I mean, I got one, and I run it and I use it. It's very versatile. It's got your ferrule on the top of the pot, so you don't necessarily have to use the football and the canister condenser that comes with it. But both are that's probably the best little pot you can buy, all ready to go without having to make any modifications at all. Just buy it and run it. I think it's probably about the best thing you can get. But there are things, you can get a keg cheaper and a column, for 150 bucks, and for 180 for about the same price. 180, $200, you can have, a 15 gallon running a keg, and have a much sturdier vessel. Those kegs are pretty resilient and take punishment, but you can't run it on the stove top after that, or on a gas stove, or if you do decide to run it on a stove top, which a lot of people with the smaller steels do, make sure that your stove doesn't cycle on and off. I can't stress that enough. If your stove heats up and then cuts off, heats up, cuts off to maintain temperature, that's not going to work. If you have the type stove where you turn it up and it gives you a constant heat and it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, but never cuts on and off, that's what you're looking for. And some of those, older glass top stoves do that. Mine does, and my new ones, I, I don't think my new one doesn't either. So, but some do. So, be wary of that if you do use a stove top, but you don't want the ones that are kind of thermostatically controlled and cutting on and off, on and off, on and off to maintain heat. It just, whatever dial you go to, it's constant heat at that temperature, right? And that's what you want. Yeah, they do. And it's good for thinning paint. It's good for, killing grass. It's good for cleaning countertops and stripping the oils off your countertops and finish it. If you got to getting ready to recoat it, you can clean it up. It's good, great for sanitizing. I'm getting close. I'm getting closer, brother. A tea wine is called shit. Oh, no. It's what do they call that? Kombucha is what it is. It's kombucha. It's a fermented tea. Is kombucha. It's very popular right now too. You have to check that out, Johnny. Kombucha, and I think they spell that with a Kombusha. I think Kombucha. 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 My niece makes a fermented tea. And it's good for your gut health. It's a really good thing. It's good for your health. And it's a little bit of wine, so it's also good. Shots, damn boys. Trying to get me drunk. Yeah, Star Sand's probably much preferred than bleach. And that's another thing that's initially a little bit expensive, but again, just a capful for a gallon of a good sanitizer. Now, I will say Star Sand isn't for cleaning. So anything that has soil, dirty that you want to clean it up first, rinse it, follow up with Star Sand. The Star Sand is basically an acidic based sanitizer and works wonders. It's really good, and the industry uses that. Food industry uses it. Distilling uses it. It's something too. They say you don't have to rinse it off. You can just go with it. I go ahead and rinse it. But yeah, yep, I definitely use it. It's very concentrated, very concentrated. Winemakers have to have it too. Wine and beer makers. It's Star Sands as a standard. I used to bleach, and then I got tired of having to rinse to get that bleach smell out, and then let it air out or take it out in the sun and let it sun bleach, get it out of there, because it's tough to get that bleach taste out. But that Star Sand is it's another good tool. Is it? Wow. I was thinking I saw one 200 Blackstone. It's probably a sale. So again, Memorial Day it'd probably be next best deal. Independence Day. Mathematician. There you go. I like it. That's right. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'd like to get me a griddle now. You got face ready. It's gonna be hard for you to see the questions, Clint. You got to get you something where you can see all the comments and questions, bro. That's why I brought you on last week. See what so you can see what we see. So I had to get you one of these PCs. I got probably five. I've got PCs. Actually, I've got some I'd give you, Clint. A little bit older, but it'd be fine for running StreamYards and doing email and stuff. Hell, I've got some I'll give you. From my mom and my sister, both passed away. I just clean all their shit off there and give it to you. It's I think some of them still have Windows 10 maybe on it, so they're not that old. I've got some other ones here that are pretty pretty fast. Got a lot of RAM and stuff in them. Old gaming rigs. Yeah, Scott's pretty knowledgeable too. Yeah, he knows. That's why you're here, brother. And I tell you what, I repeat myself a lot, and hearing that repetition, hearing these things over and over again, before you know it, you'll be talking about breaking down cell walls and all this stuff. And you'll see a lot of other people talking about these things. And, you know, what's going on, Bennett Ruff? Actually, you can vary the amount of cracked corn that you add. A lot of people like the 111, 1 pound of cracked corn, 1 gallon of water, and a pound of sugar, but that's a little bit light on the gravity. So, 2 pounds of sugar per gallon, I think will get you about 1.080. I will double check that. I haven't done a sugar wash in a while, but I'm pretty sure 2 pounds of sugar. Should be a 1.080 or right about that. 2 pounds of sugar. Um, it'll be about a 1090. So if you're doing 1 pound, you're going to be about 1045, but that's going to be a little light. Your corn might add a touch, but not really enough to bring it up. So at least a pound and a half. 2 pounds probably be a little bit lean. So maybe about a pound and a half. I always thought that 2 pounds was 1080. I'm glad this is a little bit different conversion. I've been looking at formulas and stuff, and this is one of the better formulas to use. It's not the simple formula to calculate that. So I may have to add this. So I have to save that page because I'm putting together. I'm trying to create an app that has a lot of these calculators all built into one. But I may just put up the link. I found one source that pretty much has all the best calculators at it. I just hate steering people to their site because it's I don't want to seem commercial. But let me pull it up here real quick for you, and I'll give it to y'all. Scroll down my man. If you could see my list of favorites, wow, it's so long. Damn, it's gonna take some work. Where in the world? I can't find the folder. I put them all in a folder. This is a mess. I'm not very organized. What in the world? And that's if I could scroll it up and down without the mouse wheel, but here we go. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, it's gonna take a little more time. But anyway, I found a few places, and I will. Damn, man, what the hell? I had some good links. Hope I didn't lose those. I'm sure I can find them again, but damn. Yeah, we'll have to find them again. I think it's Brewer something. I don't have to find it again, but I'll post a link in the DIY Shine and Steel Building page and the militia page. Well, they don't want me to do that in the militia page because it's a link to another site, but we'll put the DIY page. It's I think it's Brewer's Friend or something like that, but they have all the different calculators that can calculate that for you. But I would go a little bit heavier on the sugar, not a whole lot, so maybe a pound and a half, uh, and a pound of your meal or cracked corn, and a gallon of water. That'll work. That's basically about what my thin mash was, but I think I went 1-2, 1-2-1. So I was probably, that'd be why my liquor was pretty hot back in the day. But I used close to 2 pounds and a pound of grain and a gallon of water. So yeah, I was making pretty hot liquor. Hello, Miss Lisa. How are you? I didn't see you marked in your video tonight. Did you all not? I looked on the page when I logged on at 8, and I didn't see y'all doing anything, so I posted. I hope y'all didn't. Well, I hope you did. If you did delete my post, I'll go and post it after. But I usually check y'all out a little bit before I go on. Yeah, you better try to keep me behind. You know how it works. Yeah, it looks like it, but it's not vinegary at all. It's not. It's just fermented tea. It's all it is. It's just fermented tea, and it does look like mother vinegar with that Scooby in there and all, but that's just a bacteria, and that's part of what makes it beneficial for your gut health and stuff. So yeah, you definitely got to check it out. Right. Well, if you get lactobacillus is part of a malolactic fermentation, so it's very similar. If you've had lacto, you've had a similar, but yeah, it's that kombucha is a fermented tea, and it's good for you. But yeah, that mother vinegar looks a lot like the Scooby for sure, or Scoby. I'm not sure how they pronounce it. I think it's Scoby. Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that fermentation is heavily used in a lot more things than just alcohol relation. There's some of your best foods, a lot of foods that you want to preserve. Fermented is a good preservation method. Yeah, let me some crap. My ex's mom made some, or my ex's grandmother made some really good sauerkraut. Old Wonder Weddington. Yeah, she made some best damn sauerkraut. It was really good. That's right, man. They can keep a beat too, can't they? What's going on, Heavily? Good to see you, brother. How you liking that new place? Yeah. Got a shine shed going. Hell, I'm caught up, man. It ain't 10 o'clock. We may cut her off at 10 tonight. Working on a shine shed. Or just a shed. I know we could be. Yeah, I think she has like a big 5 gallon glass carboy that she uses for hers, and it's good. You know, glass is good to use. I use plastic for my wines and stuff, and I know I get browbeaten by a lot of these winemakers that just scoff at it, but poor boy's gonna do what a poor boy's gonna do, man. I get those for nothing, And those big 5 gallon glass, man, that's expensive as hell. But stainless is good too. Which is another good thing about those Vevers is they got a little airlock on the lid, little valves, couple valves on the lids. And you can ferment in those wine. And stainless is good for fermenting wine. In fact, a lot of your commercial wines are distilled in large stainless vessels. I can't believe he's building a damn shed instead of just buying a damn container. I get me one of them. I'm thinking about getting a cargo container and just kind of put some siding on it to make it dress it up a little bit and hide what it is. A couple $1,000 made out of metal, keep it from rusting, and you don't have to worry about the termites, man. They're eating my wood building up. But most of them, tend to do glass or stainless these days, JJ. But yeah, some say that the plastic is somewhat porous, so it's allowing some oxidation in at a time you don't want it. Um, yeah, small batch, yeah, 5 gallons, and that's I use the little 5-gallon water bottles. Number 10 stopper fits perfectly right in those, and it works really well. Well, just kind of dress it up a little bit. My HOA probably wouldn't like it as a cargo container, but once I put a little roof on it and siding, maybe they'd warm up a little bit to it. It's going to be like a little half of it. I'm gonna guess get a 30-footer, and like the 10 by 10 by 10 cube on one side is going to be a little bar and area where you can come in and get out of the heat, and then the other is going to be storage, and whatever. I need some storage, and my building's about to collapse. It's eaten up by termites. The back wall got eaten up, and I just cobbled up some framing, scabbed it onto the other, and got some pallet wood and made a Dutch lap siding with pallet wood and painted it, and looked great, for a while. And then one window's rotted out, so I just louvered it with, basically louvered it with pallet wood, painted it. It was fine, but that's just lipstick on the pig that's got to go. It's going to be a pain in the ass, but that's the first step in getting a lot of this house in order and getting a lot of my junk all in one place and organized. Once I get some shelving and some drawers and get my filing cabinets moved out there and start being able to, put a bunch of stuff. All your plumbing can go in one filing cabinet in each drawer. Fittings got a lot of PVC and a lot of different brass and stuff. And then I can start taking care of some other things. But yeah, they're nice, man. I've posted some links of some cabins that they've made, and just use that as your foundation and your base, and just kind of scab onto it, build onto it, build a little roof on it, put some siding on it, and it looks like a little home. I think that's be a great thing for cities to do. They want to try to help homeless. Just put a bunch of containers, and in the very back where you got those doors opening up, partition off a few feet for your water heater, your heater, and you have your drains come out there. That way you can just dig a trench right behind all that and bury all your sewer lines and water lines, supply lines, and electrical lines coming into each of them, and just help the homeless with that. Just put a door and a couple windows in it, and give them some temporary housing, and give them some transitional. Um, but really, the reason we see so many homeless these days, we have more people in that top mental state, but used to we had asylums and institutions. I hate the word asylum, but institutions that would take care of this, and our tax dollars would help fund these institutions, and it helped get people off the street and into a facility where they could be cared for, and especially the vets, and they did away with them. The government did away with them back in, I guess, the 80s and 90s. They phased them out. I don't know if it's liability or just greed, and not, but it would be it would save a lot of money if the money was going to the right place, because a lot of money get eaten up by bureaucracy. on both sides. I'm not, I'm not accusing any one side or the other, but it seems like a lot of, money gets thrown at projects and only about 10 or 20% actually makes it to the project if we're lucky, right? A lot of it gets eaten up. So, right, they were abusing people, yeah, and getting the right help and governing it, and making sure that people are doing the right thing, and you know, too, you got to realize some of the people that are going in there, are pretty bad hombres, and bad eggs. So sometimes abuse is observed, not necessarily abuse, but might be paybacks for something that they've done or something, because it's you get all kinds. When you start running institutions and stuff, you get the criminally insane. Sometimes you got to deter that with a little bit of force. So I'm not saying that they deserve to be abused, but there's some do. By God, there's some bad eggs. No, we didn't. That's what we were talking about earlier. Philby made a post talking about intolerance and dealing with people. And I'm like, shit, man. Now you see why old Santa can be a grumpy old fart sometimes. It don't get any better either. A little less tolerant than I used to be. Oh, this is true, JJ. That's a fact, brother. That's a fact. Yeah. Well, I mean, actually, I think it might have even started before that. But we're not going to call names now, Clint. What's going on, Ted? Good to see you, brother. Hell yeah. I saw old West posted pictures of his shine shed day, and I saw it underneath his underneath his big cook pot, he had a little wheel dolly. I've got a little wheel dolly too. I'm gonna utilize. So you're more tolerant now. I'm less, man. I used to be a lot more tolerant, laid back, and but now, man, as I'm getting older, I'm less tolerant. It's because I'm drinking and smoking less. I don't know. I'm not, you know, that could be it too, Mark. It is. I was saying the same damn thing. It's almost 10 o'clock. We may have to. Man, look at this old ball jar. This is up ball. Shit, you can't see it, but this thing's so worn out. You can barely see the lettering anymore, man. I'll have to check that B out. This thing may be real old. But yeah, that thing's worn. Man, it takes a lot of drinking, man, to wear that lettering off, the raised lettering off this ball jar. But it sure is. You can see the B, but you can't see the ALL at all. It's been literally worn out. That's right about where your thumb goes, man. So somebody done a lot of drinking with this jar. I wonder who that was. Mike. That's where I got that jar. I was the same way, JJ. I used to be very patient, was a pushover, and it'd take a lot to get me riled up and going, and it was hard to get my pumps primed. But man, now I'm older, man. Well, now sometimes we have to walk away. We get our ass kicked or get too old to fight, right? Sometimes maybe that's what it is. You got to develop tolerance because you can't back your principles up with a little throwing some hands when you start getting too old. It's like damn. Oh, I definitely speak my mind. And I try to, on here especially, and some of us more than others try to not really. I try to not get political. It's so easy these days just not to, want to just dive in and say things, but I don't want to offend anybody, and everybody believes differently, and I don't even want to get started because if I do, I'll start saying shit. But yeah, I try to stay away from it, and this is me trying to be, I'm I just try to walk away from these discussions because I found talking about politics and stuff. Generally, people want to believe what they want to believe. I mean, some people you can show them a picture and they'll still deny what they see. So when it gets to that point, you're not going to convince anybody to think differently than they are. I know that's what a lot of our goals are, is to help them see things the way we see things. And, you know, they just see things the way they want to see things, and it's all based on opinion and everybody has one. And so I do know that, yeah, this is some honey liquor. This was some mead whiskey I'm drinking here. It's really good, especially for a 1 year maker. It's the cuts are okay. Could have done a little bit better in the cuts, but for a 1 year distiller, damn good job. Damn good job. That's it. Smith and Wesson and Colt. There you go. Yep. Old six. Yeah. That's pretty funny, JJ. I like it. Yeah, you can't. You can't. You can't get. I don't try to get caught up in politics. As you want to convince people, and there are certain things though. When it boils down to certain things, it's like I don't care whether you got a D or an R after your name or an I. Um, there's certain things that we should all agree on morally and fundamentally. And the fact that we're not these days is because of brainwashing and on both sides. And I'm going to start that. But fundamentally, we should all agree on a lot of things that we, some reason, we're not right now, and that's troubling. Right, and I've got some friends that I can still debate politics with, and we're still friends. And I really really appreciate that because today more so than ever, the intolerance. You can't have an intellectual conversation about politics and stuff without people just wanting to cancel you, right? If you don't believe the way I do, fuck you. And fortunately for them, I'm not that way. But if they want to be that way, then fine. I guess we weren't as close friends as I thought. But yeah, fewer and fewer people are really able to sit and talk, and that's one of the reasons I don't want to talk about it. It's because a lot of people just tend to just say go away. And I don't. I want to keep this podcast about distilling and beer and wine, and I don't care if you're as far left as you can be or far right as you can be or as independent as you want to be. I don't even I want to keep it kind of neutral and get away from all that because I think a lot of people like coming here and coming to places where they don't have to deal and talk about all that because it seems like everywhere you go these days people are. So I want to keep this kind of politics and religion free. I do have some strong opinions on those. But I'd like to try to keep it, all free of all that. Right, exactly. And morally, like I was saying, JJ, I think fundamentally we should all believe in this in certain things. And and I don't think that these days that we fundamentally believe in the same moral values that we should. What it all boils down to is fundamental rights and fundamental things. I think definitely everybody should agree on. You know, and it's like not everybody does, and that's very troubling. Very troubling. And yes, the media is to blame for sure, 100%. Media and the people that are paying them. It's actually the people that are paying the media, to do what they're doing, but they are the mouthpiece and they are the tool that's being used to propagate. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And those taxes shouldn't be wasted and fraud and milked, and sent to terroristic organizations all over the world. All this NGO money that went to so many things and funded so many campaigns and got back funneled to D and R people. It's a shame. And the reason that you're not seeing anything done about it is because the more they investigate, it's like, oh hell, I guess we had a hand in that too. So it never gets, that's why we don't ever see it get brought before the courts. It's like, okay, so we had the evidence against these people. Why aren't they being brought forward? Why aren't Pam Bondi bringing them forward? It's because once they do some research, like, oh, I guess we had a hand in that too. I guess, oh, hell, some of our top R's are doing the same damn thing. So, there's corruption across the board. It's not just on one side. That's a fact, brother. That's a fact. Yeah, this humming is pretty odd, aren't we? We are. That's right, man. If you don't agree with me, you need to. I mean, if you don't agree with me, then you just don't understand, and I'm just not explaining things well enough, right? That's the way most people are. Maybe I'm just not explaining it well to you. Let me try a different approach, same angle, different. Yeah. All right, guys, we're gonna cut it short. Um, got some beginners in here. That's good. Got some new people in tonight. That's awesome. Don't forget to hit that like button. And remember that we're here on Tuesdays and Saturdays, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central. So bring your questions and your successes and your failures, and we can all learn from them and share them. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your week. It's going to get cold as hell here this week. Supposed to maybe get some snow by Thursday and single digit temperatures again. That's right. We'll be here on Saturday, same time, same bat channel, baby. There's Mike, the vinegar man. Hadn't chimed in the whole time we've been talking about vinegar. So he can tell you about vinegar. Mike makes vinegar. So anyway, it's good seeing everybody. And Mike, if you missed it, you'll have to go back and listen to it, brother. And we were talking about vinegar and we needed your expertise. I don't know. Yeah, we've been talking about vinegar, man. I'm all caught up. But yeah, we were talking about vinegar earlier, so maybe we can bring it back up Saturday and we can talk about it. Mike's the vinegar man; he knows all about the vinegar, and we were talking about also the JJ's talking about fermenting some kombucha and talking about how the SCOBY looks a lot like the mother of vinegar, and kind of pointing out the similarities, but that they're quite different, but they both I think form the same function as far as uh, giving the biotics to keep it all alive. So I guess it's the heart of it. So yeah, and I was telling them, how difficult it is. It's not as easy as you think, is it, Mike, to make vinegar? It's you have to force it. Sometimes you have to prime it. But yeah, thanks for visiting, Stephen. Definitely drop in, brother. We're here on every Tuesdays and Saturdays, man, and we want to help you along in your path, man, and help your hobby better. And you'll find we're a pretty good group of guys to hang out with and have a shot or two on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And if you ain't got nothing going on, drop in. If you do, find us on DIY Shine and Steel Building on Facebook, or Moonshine Militia on Facebook. If you join Moonshine Militia, make sure you tell them old Santa sent you and that you're part of the podcast. And we can get you in there. But yeah, it's a great place for you to come, and we'll help you along in your hobby and make it a lot more enjoyable for you. We'll help you along and help you learn, and make it a lot easier. We'll smooth out those stumble biscuits, right? We'll make it the path a little bit easier for you. Um, so, but definitely look into maybe possibly if you go to fieldbillymoonshine.com, or Fieldbilly's page on YouTube, Fieldbilly Moonshine on YouTube. Check him out. They do a lot with Vevers and stuff. They make a lot of attachments for Vevers, and he's got a lot of how-to videos on how to make you a condenser if you want to, add you a little bit improved condenser on there. Might not go if you do. I would go ahead and size it up, because you're going to eventually want a bigger steel, right? So you started out, you're going to get your feet wet on the three, and eventually this 3 gallon steel will become your thumper, right? So just know that now. But one day that 3 gallon steel is going to be your thumper, and you're going to have a 15 or something next to it, a keg or a bever or something sitting next to it. And you're going to be pumping into that 3 gallon keg as your thumper, and you'll remember, man, I started out. That was what I started out with, man, and it's all just part of the process. I do, when people do come in and ask for recommendations, I generally do try to steer them towards a 10, just because it's so much easier, and it's so much more rewarding. You get more product, right, for the work you're putting into it and the time. But it's definitely good to get your feet wet with a 3, and it makes an excellent thumper. So, it's not something lost. It's not money lost. It's not money wasted, because you're eventually going to use that as your thumper. You will, trust me. That day will come. But if you want to go ahead and upgrade your condenser now, it's something that you can, in the future you won't have to do again, right? So you can use it even after you upgrade. So we'll get you on gear for that. But really be careful about over tightening those gaskets, those plastic gaskets, because they'll split on you and break in a heartbeat. So be really cautious about that. But we don't want leaks either, right? So it's tough. Should have found us a little sooner. We could have saved you on that, but all's not lost. And, that 3 gallon treated good, because it's going to be your thumper one day. Just saying. Yeah, let's have us a little shot before we say goodnight. Good seeing Tyler Ray. Thanks for dropping in. And yeah, don't. Hell yeah, man. Yeah, let us know how that sour mash is working out. Again, there's 2 different methods, and we can talk about them in depth, and you can kind of combine the 2. You can, this is an experiment. It's you can try different things and see how it works. But it's all good. Definitely a lot of fun. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys and gal. We will see you all Saturday, unless you tune in Friday. I'm not sure what we got going on this week. Let me see. Let me pull up the calendar events on the militia. Let's see. Today is, damn, it's the 13th. Hmm. They still don't have my Tuesday penciled in. Damn, it's slacking. Hey, I guess America and Moonshine Friday, and then we'll see you back on Saturday. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Peace out. We'll see you Saturday. Remember, you just stumbled right in here when we're leaving, bro. But catch up. You can catch the podcast later on this week, and do like everybody else seems to. Hey, a lot of people, most of the people watch it afterwards. So you're just one in the 90% plus that watch the show live or after the live. We get about 7 or 8% watch it live, and then the majority of people watch it later in the week, which is great, which tells me that a lot of the questions that they have are getting answered, or else they'd be in here asking them and saying, I've been listening, but nobody's answered this for me. So I think we're doing a pretty good thing. 4 a.m. Hell yeah, man. When I self-employed, man, actually most people don't know I used to be a real estate appraiser, and I worked for myself for 35 years almost, and it's really tough. I put in 16, 18-hour days, working until wee hours in the morning. I'd go out and do my site inspections, 10, 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and 10, 11 in the morning to 12, 1 in the afternoon, and get all my plats and everything, come home, type them up, and work till 3, 4 in the morning, typing them up, and do the, rinse and repeat, doing it again the same next day, trying to crank them out 1 or 2 a day. It's tough, man. That's right, brother. Well, we'll see y'all Saturday. Have a great week, and hope for everybody's fermentations that are going right now go smoothly, and get up with us Saturday and let us know how they're going. Look forward to hearing about that cider mash. Till then, y'all have a great week, and we'll see you this weekend. Peace out. Shine on. Love y'all.